Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, Stephanie's Ireland. I'm Stephanie and welcome to the 10 worst books that I read in 2021. This video is going to be a video full of complaining, just so you know. If this is the first video you're seeing of me, maybe don't watch this one. So we're going to start off this list of worst books with one I have spoken about so many times and ranted about so many times, and once I say all I have to say in this video, I will be leaving it to rest because we're not bringing those bad vibes into 2022. And that is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. I mentioned this book in a 24-hour vlog of mine, so if you haven't seen that, you should go watch it. And I basically ranted about that in real time in much more detail. So if you want to go see that, you should go watch it. By the way, I don't have any of the physical books except for 2, obviously because I don't want any books that I don't like. And also I just did an unhaul, so if you want to go watch that, you should. I will also link that. This book is a thriller book and it's won a few awards, I think, and a lot of people love it. But it follows this woman who, after she shoots her husband 7 times, she goes mute and doesn't talk about it ever again. The narrator of the story, who is a therapist, and he is going to find this woman and see what is up, see if he can make her talk and figure out what happened. The premise of this book is good and it sounds interesting, but the delivery and the plot twist is the thing I have a problem with. The rest of the story I was really engaged with and I was like, really excited to find out more and what was going to happen, and then I found out the plot twist and I was just like, you're kidding, right? That's a joke. For me, I just did not like it. I don't know if it's because I'm not a thriller reader that I didn't like the book, but I do love a good plot twist. But this one just not, it was not good. I didn't like it. I didn't think it made sense. I think it was way too obvious. Take all these opinions in this video with a pinch of salt because I'm not a writer. I don't know how to write books and I don't read books that critically, except for when I hate them. So obviously I'm not a thriller writer. I don't know how you write thrillers. So objectively, I don't, like, my opinion doesn't really matter whether it's good or not. But yeah, just personally, I just didn't enjoy it. I didn't like it at all. And I thought it was a waste of my time. The next book on this list, I actually unhauled in my last video, and it's a book I was really excited for, so I'm really sad that I didn't like it. It just wasn't for me. And that book is The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. And it had such an interesting premise, and the whole world fantastical element of the book was absolutely incredible. So intriguing, so interesting, and that was the one thing I loved about the book. But basically it follows this girl who stumbles upon and accidentally lets free this like millennial old genie or demon or person that's been trapped. I don't really know. And it turns out he's this like big historical like warrior type man. Basically, she's on the run and he brings her to safety to this place, which is the City of Brass. The whole book is basically just their kind of adventure to the City of Brass, which makes sense because it's the first book in, I think it's a trilogy. For me, the thing that let it down was the characters. I just did not vibe with the characters whatsoever. Like, I found the main character, the girl, I found her so annoying. Then the like warrior magical lad, like, are we just gonna ignore the genocide he's committed just because he's hot? And he was rude. He was not like a cutesy, you know, redeems himself by being nice. Oh, he's changed. He hasn't. In my opinion, he hasn't. He's still a dickhead. And I did not like the fact that this young teenage girl was given a love interest in him. Like, he was her love interest. Like, even though I don't like her, she deserves better. He deserves to be gone. It wasn't a bad book objectively. The writing was good, although it was quite info dumpy, but I think that's just because it was the first book in a series. The next book on this list is a book I read for my vlog about TikTok books. It's Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, and I had such high expectations going into this. I was like, I'm going to love this book. It's going to be phenomenal because everyone and their mother raves about this book and says, oh my god, it's so good. It's so good. And I was like, yes, I'm so excited for a new fantasy series that I can get into, because at this point, and still kind of, the only fantasy series that I've fallen in love with is Throne of Glass, and I want something else like that that will really hook me. And like, I thought the Sea of Brass was going to be it. I thought Serpent and Dove was going to be it. There's another book that I read recently, From Blood and Ash. I thought that was going to be it. No. So please help. Serpent and Dove is about a witch and a witch hunter in France in, I think, around the 18th century. Loved the fact she was a witch. The main character, actually, I really loved her and I thought she was so cool and funny and just such a bad bitch. The problem I had with this story was it didn't really have anything happen in it. Like I said, it's a witch and a witch hunter, and basically they end up having to get married. The witch is like running away from someone who's trying to kill her, essentially. Like, that's it. That's what happens in the book. And I think it's supposed to be like a fantasy romance, which understandable then why the plot isn't really at the forefront of the story. That's fine. I get that. The problem I had with this book was the relationship between the witch and the witch hunter felt really forced. Like, obviously it was a forced marriage. Like, when they actually started falling for each other, it just felt like it was too quick and like it was really insta-lovey, and they didn't actually know each other properly for them to be able to have these feelings. And then like the plot twist towards the end, the way it ended, I was just like, what was the point in that? Like, that's so stupid. Like, I don't get where this is going. It just was not it for me. The next book is a book I have physically. Woo! The only reason I kept this book is because it's cute. But this book I have mentioned before, and I read it in my 24-hour reading vlog, I think, one of my more recent ones. And it's Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. I've read Leigh Bardugo's other works, like Six of Crows and some of the Shadow and Bone series. I love Six of Crows. Don't like Shadow and Bone. Ninth House, I had such high expectations. I was really, really excited because I loved Six of Crows. This book had such an interesting premise. It's a dark academia book about this girl who basically gets into this society called Ninth House in Oxford, Cambridge, Yale? Aren't they not all the same thing? Yale. And this university has a society that the main character is now a part of that delves into dark magic. A lot of this story I was confused, and I think that could be just a me problem because a lot of people did like this book, but I was very confused for a lot of it. I just don't think it was properly laid out. Maybe it was supposed to be confusing for a reason, because I know there's probably the sequel to it coming out because of the way it ended. But yeah, the character I liked in this story wasn't at the forefront of the story. I did like the main character sometimes, but sometimes I did think she was just obnoxiously mysterious. Like, she just didn't need to do all that she was doing. She's being a bit extra. But there was some beautiful quotes in this. But yeah, all in all, I just think for me, it made me confused. And that's why I didn't like it, because I just didn't understand it. But the whole idea was cool. The next book on this list is a book that took me like a month or two to finish. It was a lot. And before I say it, I'm just going to say this book is by no means bad. I just was not intelligent enough to read it. And I know a lot of people, like a lot of people adore this book and this series. And I wish I was one of those people. I really do, because when I went into it, I was like, oh, I'm going to love this. I can't wait. It's a new series I'm going to love. And I'd heard so much about it, but it just kind of didn't work for me. And that is The Poppy War by R.F. Kuang. This book has such a cool premise. And I really, when I was reading it, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. But also I was very confused. It follows our main character, Rin, who basically ends up taking this test that a lot of people have prepared for, but she unfortunately isn't really allowed or doesn't have the funds to prepare for it correctly. And it's an exam that people don't really pass unless they're the best of the best. Like, you are the best of the best if you pass this exam. And she ends up taking it and passing it. And so she gets into this kind of academy of essentially like soldiers. There's a lot of fantastical elements to this with magic realism and everything like that. But for me, I just think there wasn't enough character moments for me. I'm a really kind of character driven reader. I love the characters. I do love a good plot, but for me the characters are really what make the story. So I think that's why I didn't like it as much. Adored the kind of just all the history and all the thought that went into the plot. It was just so detailed, so detailed. It had so much in it. And I think that's where I got lost. It is a very long book and the first book in a fantasy series, so it took me a while to get to grips with the world and the magic system and all the characters and just kind of the history of the world. Because this book is set in the height of war. So it's all about war, and as you can assume, war is chaotic. But yeah, for me it didn't work. I just didn't like it. But I'm very jealous of people who do, because I know that the other books absolutely crush your soul, and that's what I wanted when I read it. But I didn't get it. So the next book that was one of the worst books I read in 2021 is Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard. I'm not going to talk about it much because the reason why I didn't like it is just because I'm not the target audience for it anymore. So Red Queen is set in a world where there's, oh my god, can I even remember? Our main character is one of the Reds, I think. And basically what that means is she bleeds red. And there are other people in this world who bleed white. And they have these kind of superhuman abilities. And they're the rich. Character ends up finding her way into a castle of whites and has to deal with a lot of political dramas and gets involved in all of that. I just think it was a very typical YA book, and that's why I didn't like it. That's not to say it's not a good book, because I know a lot of people love the book and the series. For me, I'm not the target audience, so that's why I didn't like it. The next book is a book I didn't really want to put on this list because it kind of hurts my heart to put it on it. But I read it because Maggie Stiefvater is one of my favourite authors ever, and it's quite insulting to her to put this book on this list right now, so I'm sorry. But it had to be done because it was one of her earlier books, and I think it's just not the vibe for me. But that book is Lament, the Fairy Queen's Deception by Maggie Stiefvater. I honestly don't even know what this book is about. I think it's about this girl who meets a boy who is kind of like a fairy, and it's all about magic, and there's a lot of kind of Irish folklore in it, which I liked. I thought that was really good. Maggie Stiefvater writes a lot of Irish folklore in her books, and I just love that aspect of her writing because obviously I'm Irish and I love Irish folklore. Like you could tell it was one of her earlier books, and it just objectively wasn't really written well and wasn't structured correctly. And also I just didn't really care about it. And I didn't really like the characters that much. They were quite whiny and annoying. That's not to say I don't like Maggie Stiefvater, because obviously I do. Like, I have a tattoo for her. I mean, but this book just wasn't it. The next book is a book that I just wasted my time reading. And it was very annoying because I actually finished it. This was before I was on my DNFing spree over the summer. So I didn't end up DNFing it. I actually finished it. Criminal. But that book is The Court of Miracles by Kester Grant. It's basically a kind of Les Miserables retelling. I honestly don't even know how to explain it. It's like whoever won that particular war that it's about, I can't remember, the opposite side won. So this book is reimagined as if the other side won, and all the implications of that. It follows a main character who, her father sells her to someone, and she ends up turning into like this thief. And basically she just goes around stealing stuff, but also she's on a mission to save her sister who got sold to a brothel. The story is just so dragged out and just doesn't make sense. It's so convoluted. It has no depth whatsoever. Couldn't even remember the main character's name. It wasn't well written, and the conclusion to the story was just so disappointing. There was nothing. I was just like, what a waste of my time. The second last book on this list, it's the kind of novella to Wicker King, which is one of my favorite books of this year. The Legend of the Golden Raven by Kay Ancrum. The reason why I didn't like this book is because it was just a rehashing of the entirety of the Wicker King from the other person's perspective. It had no difference. Like, there was a few little bits where it was like, oh, so this is what this person thought of it from that perspective. But there was very few. But read The Wicker King. That book is so good. The last book on this list is another book I still own because I can't for the life of me give it away because it's just too pretty. I didn't hate this book. There's some books on this list that I hated with a passion, but there's some others that I didn't hate, I just didn't like. And I think the reason why they're on this list for the 10 worst books is because I had such high expectations, and that's why they let me down so much. And that book is Legendborn by Tracy Dion. Oh, I had such high expectations for this. It's a King Arthur retelling. There's obviously loads of magic and mages and stuff like that in this book. The conclusion at the end of the story I just wasn't a fan of, and it kind of fell flat. I think it mostly fell flat because of the amount of hype surrounding it, and I think that's mostly my fault. I hyped it up too much in my head, and then when I read it I was just a bit let down. That is all the books on this list of the 10 worst books I read in 2021. I kind of feel bad posting this video because it's practically me just shitting on books for a good 20 minutes. Yeah, these are just my opinions. They don't mean that these books are terrible. Like I said, some of them are worse than others in my opinion, and I just didn't vibe with them. That's all. Thank you for watching this video. You can follow my Instagram if you'd like. It's Stephanies_Laralyn. Like this video if you'd like to, subscribe to my channel if you want, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!